Here we go. Caleb Calhoun with us. Amanda Lafrada under the weather, but we are loaded up for the next hour and a half with you. Excited to talk Tennessee, Florida. It is the Florida game tomorrow, and even Caleb has a little bit of a smile. He's kind of cynical like me from time to time, but it is really exciting for the college football world to be looking at Knoxville, Tennessee. We want to take your messages and our message board, get your thoughts on the Tennessee Florida game. We'll take some score predictions and more. And I want to remind you to hit that like and subscribe button, and please share with your friends. I was doing the analytics search yesterday, and only about 80%, or only about 20%, I should say, of our watchers and our viewers actually has subscribed. So go ahead and mash that subscribe button and go ahead and like it and leave a comment below because we want to hear from you. We got a couple of score predictions already, so we'll get to those. Caleb Calhoun with Off the Hook Sports does a fantastic job of helping us stay on top of Josh Hepel and Tennessee's coaching staff via press conferences and that good stuff. So Caleb, how are you, sir?
Pretty good. Happy Friday and second day of fall. Really felt like it this morning.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So it did feel a little bit like that, and I'm kind of a wimp. I hate the cold. It didn't bother me so much when I was super fat, but because I had insulation. But I've lost a little bit of weight, so I hate it now. And I did actually turn on the heater in the car this morning. Now I got up at 4 in the morning, but nevertheless, um, I um I had the heater on, which is I was thinking, oh man, here we go. But that's fine with me. I just don't like cold. I can take kind of cold. All right, so we are absolutely getting rolling here. We already had a question. Is there any word on the game day picker? I haven't heard that yet, Caleb. I heard that Dolly Parton essentially turned it down. I know that Blake Toppmeyer with USA Today Network had a dream selection, and one of them was John Adams. I would love that. John Adams of the Knoxville News Sentinel, who joins us on our YouTube page, and check that out. That would be awesome. I can just imagine. I can imagine Kirk Herbstreit say, "Who do you got in this game?" Well, I don't know, Kirk. I guess I'll go with Tennessee. Yeah, John is fantastic. So check him out on our YouTube page. But yes, Caleb, it is officially fall. And boy, if it wasn't football season before, it is now because Tennessee, Florida. Your thoughts on the hype leading into this game? Pretty much unprecedented. And I say that because college football is bigger now. The most hyped game that I've ever seen firsthand, and I was a student at Tennessee, was the 97 game where Peyton Manning, it was his senior year. And or it would be the 96th, the one that was at home. I think 97 people thought that they were less likely to win that game. So let me say 96. And that was a week of anticipation. This, because college football has gotten bigger in general, I'm actually going to say is bigger. I think this is the biggest single week of hype for a Tennessee football game in the history of the program. Is that?
Wow,
I
that's a
know.
statement.
I know. I'm telling you, it is bigger than the 96 thing. It just is. And the reason I think it is because Florida was probably still a 3-point favorite at the time, even on the road. And so while fans were optimistic, I don't think anybody just thought it was a surefire win. This one to me says that Tennessee should win this game. Girish saying hello. We appreciate that. I would encourage you to check out El Chico there on Merchants Drive. All right, free plug there, Girish. So, Caleb, this game is one in which it's hard to find ways that Florida should win the game. And that usually means in this series that Tennessee loses the game. why is that different this year, do you believe?
I still don't know that it's different. I'm going to be
It
honest.
might not be.
I mean, I've covered this series too much in the past. I think that, and just for just a little bit of backstory here, Tennessee has lost to Florida's last five first-year head coaches have beaten Tennessee. The last first-year head coach to lose to Tennessee from Florida was Spurrier in 1990, and the Vols won that one like 45-3.
Right.
It's been crazy. But Ron Zook shocked Tennessee in 2002, and that was supposed to be the year that was the first time in years Tennessee had been favored, and that was the wet ball can't handle the snap game. And then 3 years later, Urban Meyer wins. Will Muschamp wins in 2011, and then Jim McElwain wins in 2015. Dan Mullen wins in 2018. So if you go by history, there's nothing to suggest that this might be different. I mean, it's at that point, if you're a Vol fan, it's still just a little bit of hope based. I will say, and then I mean, honestly, but on an X's and O's standpoint, we talked earlier in the week. We're not sure if Cedric Tillman's going to be able to go. I think Jabari Small is going to be able to go in the game, but there are some questions about Cedric Tillman. Now, as far as where things are different, I mean, I don't think Tennessee has had the level of stability facing Florida themselves that they have this year, that in years past where they might have had a chance that they didn't have.
And you wrote about that, talking about coaching stability. I thought that was great. Throw the stat out there about the fact that they have had stability. I thought that was a really good stat. Well, not necessarily stat, but it
Oh
was
yeah, all but one assistant coach is back, and Kelsey, and the one assistant coach they changed, Cody Burns, receivers coach, left for the NFL, and Kelsey Pope was promoted. Pope was in an off-field role last year, so he was already pretty familiar with everything going on. And I think that's a really big help, because if I were to compare this to recent Tennessee Florida games, I would look back at 2016, which Tennessee won, and they had stability there. But then I look back at 2012 when those were the last two times College Game Day came to Knoxville and Tennessee was favored. 2012 was Derek Dooley had to replace like 7 staff members. Most notably, he had to replace Justin Wilcox with Sal Sinceri as defensive coordinator, and that ended up being a disaster, and it undid Derek Dooley. I've always felt Derek Dooley had a. People are going to find me crazy in Knoxville. I always rooted for Derek Dooley. I felt he had a really short stick competing in the SEC. I'm not saying he didn't deserve to be fired, but yeah, the Sal Sinceri hire did him in 2012.
Well, I was covering recruiting at the time, so I knew what a poor job he was doing in recruiting. The fact that he wouldn't even drive to Chattanooga to see Von Bell was bizarre. And I remember Von Bell was winning some award, and he went on to a pretty good NFL career. And I remember going there, and I was like, "Who do you like?" And he named off 2 or 3 schools, and he said, "And Tennessee," and kind of made this face. I said, "What do you?" I don't want to read too much into it, but why'd you make that face? And he goes, "I don't know." So then I asked around. Well, he hadn't heard from Derek Dooley. Yeah, Derek Dooley hadn't been at a game, hadn't come to see him. And here he is being offered by Ohio State, Alabama, and everybody you can imagine. And he's a 90-minute drive. So maybe I wasn't as high on Derek Dooley because of that. But Caleb, a couple of things that I wrote about, one last night and one this morning, a couple of things that you should think about long term besides just the winner of the Tennessee Florida game on Saturday, which that's what we're focused on, and that's what we're going to break down. But I heard this contention from another talk show host that this is Tennessee's year, that if they don't do it this year, they're never going to do it. And while they are the heavy favorite, and while Tennessee should beat Florida, and there's no question about that when you look at the rosters 1-85, when you look at, I believe Tennessee has a coaching advantage as well. I am not subscribing to the notion at all that if Tennessee loses, that they can't even up this series for the foreseeable future. Couple of different reasons I'm going to throw at you. Number one, as far as recruiting in the Steve Spurrier days, there was an incredible advantage. You had programs that would love to recruit Florida more and more and more, but there weren't those type of budgets. There just wasn't. those type of budgets back then. So you couldn't hop on a plane as easily. I'm going back in the 90s. Now you've got Alabama, Clemson, Rutgers. Everybody goes into Florida to recruit that area. So I don't think it's as easy to get the best talent. So I'm starting with recruiting. Then you have Nashville. You have Nashville that's going to be able to feed talent into Tennessee. Nashville is kind of like a little Atlanta right now and continues to grow. So the recruiting disparity between the two is not like it was in the 90s. Tennessee or any other program can jet down, be competitive with Florida. There's finances at every school to be able to do that now. It's not like it used to be. And they can recruit as well as Florida can. Obviously, there's a local advantage there. Tennessee has Nashville. The other thing that I pointed out in my column, NIL. Tennessee is going to be way, way better off in terms of NIL than Florida. The boosters are just heavier, and I think that's pretty apparent by the fact that Knoxville is a much bigger city. And the other thing that I pointed out as to why this could be an even up series is that, listen, everybody loves Billy Napier. I hear how detail oriented he is. But the bottom line is Josh Heupel has some sizzle. I don't know that Billy Napier has some sizzle. He could be the next Urban Meyer. I don't think so. He could be the next Steve Spurrier. I don't think so. He's somewhere between that and Ron Zook. I don't know where. But for the short term and maybe longer than that, I think that Tennessee has a coaching advantage until I see differently. Thoughts?
I actually agree with. I most agree with the second one. The second
Okay.
point, the NIL point. I think I'm with you. NIL money is Florida is actually better than most schools. They actually got out ahead of the curve because they have one of the top 5 largest NIL initiatives. But Tennessee's higher, and you're right. Tennessee's just got money to throw that a lot of SEC schools. Until Texas joins the SEC, I don't think anybody's close to Tennessee on that front. You are another point about recruiting that I've argued. And I think people miss this. People have been missing this for years, honestly, with the exception of Georgia and LSU and Ohio State. Those 3 schools, maybe USC, but I kind of reject USC because UCLA and Cal and Stanford are still there. But Georgia, Ohio State, and LSU are the only 3 schools that are in really rich recruiting areas that have no real competition near them. Florida, forget the out-of-state competition. UCF is going to be in the Big 12 next year. Florida State's still recruiting North Florida. Miami still does get talent in South Florida. That's still a hotbed. So Florida still has to compete with a lot of other in-state schools. If high school football, and I've heard the stories, and I agree that I think Tennessee's high school football is getting better because Nashville is growing. It hasn't really shown up in terms of players from Tennessee in the NFL yet, players from within the state. But if it does start to show up, Tennessee's not losing Nashville kids to another in-state school most of the time. They're not losing to Vanderbilt over Nashville kids. And I think that's where one of the underrated stories is that Florida has usually these football-rich states have a lot of schools competing for that talent. Texas, people wonder why Texas has fallen off. Well, Texas A&M is in the SEC. That's why Texas wants to join. And TCU went to the Big 12, Baylor. I mean, there's a lot of schools that compete for Texas talent. Plus, Oklahoma comes down and gets a lot of Texas talent. And I think that you're right. If the state of Tennessee high school football improves, particularly in Nashville, then Tennessee's not going to lose out on those kids. Right now, I would still venture to say the high school football, the recruiting is at its best in West Tennessee, and that's a little bit trickier for Tennessee because Ole Miss can get Memphis kids, Arkansas can get Memphis kids. Memphis is not so much. Tennessee doesn't really have a fence around Memphis the way it does the rest of the state.
Yeah, and Caleb's from there. For those that don't know, you're absolutely right. You go there, and you're as likely to see an Ole Miss license plate or not a license plate, Ole Miss bumper sticker, as you are Alabama, as you are at Tennessee. So, yeah, that's a whole different area there. I mean, that might as well be outside the state. Now, if you start to win at a high level, maybe that changes, but I don't think so. That's a long ways away. There are a lot of schools that are a lot closer. So we get rolling. Brought to you by Honeybee Coffee. Honeybee Coffee with the top 5% of the beans that you can order online, or they have locations in Knoxville. But I highly encourage you to go ahead and order online, because Honeybee Coffee is going to be the best coffee you've ever tasted. Like I've said before, I don't drink coffee. I sat down there for a meeting. I drank 3 cups. Absolutely loved it. And I have a meeting there next week, and I'm going to drink coffee again. And it'll be the only time I drink coffee until I'm back at Honeybee. It's just that good. Honeybee Coffee. Just Google them, go to their website, and order the beans, top 5% of the coffee beans. Grind them yourself, and you're going to have the best cup of coffee you can imagine. Hit that like and subscribe button. Please share. The other thing that I pointed out is, seems like we spent all of the preseason talking about the talent that Anthony Richardson had, and the fact that the Florida quarterback was just absolutely going to light the world on fire. Well, so far through 3 games, Richardson has 2 tackles and 0 touchdown passes. Now, when you look at what Tennessee has in its quarterback fold, it could be absolutely historic. You obviously have Hendon Hooker. If you want to talk about talent in a stadium as far as quarterbacks, you have Hendon Hooker. He's bona fide, proven. You have Joe Milton, who has a bazooka. Do I think he has the right mental makeup? And I'm not questioning his intelligence. Don't get me wrong. But some people are quick decision makers. Some people aren't. But does he have the mental makeup? That's a question mark. But he's talented. If we're just talking about talent, Taven Jackson was the number 12 overall quarterback, and I know you really like him. And then there's some guy named Nico that's going to be in attendance. So that's a pretty talented quattro. Now, Hooker's going to be gone next year. Everybody expects Nico just to step in and start. I think you're a little wary of that, as am I. I think Taven Jackson's pretty good. And Joe Milton. But if you look at that group, it's about as good as any school could hope for, especially in this era of transfer portals. Caleb, to have a group of quarterbacks like that, unheard of.
Absolutely. And one of the crazy parts is, with the way college football is changing, college football for the longest time was a little bit different than the NFL, in that your quarterback, depending on the program, didn't matter as much, I guess. But I think with the way college football has changed over the past 10 years, the quarterback's starting to matter a lot more. You can't do the old Nick Saban routine of, let me just load up on defensive guys and I'll plug in a player at quarterback. And I think that particularly Josh Heupel's system, that is so reliant on elite quarterback play, and also one of the things Josh Heupel's system does very well is it creates so many opportunities for open receivers to hit them. And so I think that I agree, that's such an advantage for Tennessee next year, to have those 3 guys. And I really think the job is anybody's for the taking. And everybody's hype. Some people who may have put up some money to lure Nico to Knoxville may be upset about that if he doesn't get the job. But I really think it's up for the taking. I wonder what's going to happen with NIL money, because I think about Nico, and this just popped into my mind. This is going to be a random sidebar, but I just randomly the other day, I watched on YouTube that old movie, The Junction Boys, about Bear Bryant going to Texas A&M in his first year. And
You're such a college football history nut. I love that. I haven't seen that movie, but now I want to go see it. But go ahead. I mean, for those that don't know, Caleb, the first time he was on the show, referenced a Bowden Wyatt stat. I was like, what? I was like, are you like an 80-year-old in the body of a 32-year-old? But
just so people know, I also majored in U.S. history in college. So
okay.
Sports and history together, I'm obsessed with it. But in 1954, Bear Bryant goes to Texas A&M. There was a major issue with players at the time that was common then, where players who had connections, legacy players, would be on the team, and the boosters and the fathers would just demand that those players start. And Bear Bryant hated the situation he was in. He kind of thought he made a mistake taking the job at Texas A&M and leaving Kentucky. And so he, to toughen them up, went out. The story is he just took them out to practice camp facility in Junction and ran a military style boot camp and damn near killed the players. And it's he would be in prison today if he did that. But the point I was getting at with that was like, that was so common back in the day of boosters and legacy fathers really pushing for their players to start and play. That kind of went by the wayside as recruiting kind of took off. I'm starting to think that might come back with NIL money, though, because you're going to see some boosters who really poured some money into some players coming to the program, being in the coach's ear, being like, yeah, you might need to start this guy.
It could be. I think there's going to be some pressure there to play guys. I hope that it's not going to affect. I don't believe Josh Heupel's mind. I hope it doesn't affect any of the boosters' minds where they feel like they need to give Josh Heupel a call, because you want to turn a coach against your program really, really quick. You start telling him who to play just because you're rich, and now just because you're playing a guy. Nobody is going to dig that. Okay, so Cedric Tillman, Tennessee's wide receiver, it appears as if, according to reports by WBIR, might not play, probably will not play, as a matter of fact. And as we would expect, Josh Heupel played it extremely close to the vest. It's certainly a blow. I don't think there's any question about that. However, it's the one position that Tennessee could afford to lose a preseason all SEC player, because there's a lot of depth there. There really is.
I agree. There's a you called it earlier in the week. Funny enough, you were the one who pretty much said you were looking for kind of a breakout game from Brew McCoy, and it's now his time to shine. Honestly, with Cedric Tillman gone, because he's shown a lot of promise. I think what you can't replace with Tillman, because you can replace his size, speed, athleticism, and a lot of that with the other guys in the system. You can't replace the ability to make such an impact per touch, which is kind of a weird thing I say, but I think that's an underrated stat with receivers, which is, when do they get their touchdowns? When do they get their yards? And Cedric Tillman has a pretty good habit of making his touchdowns meaningful. I mean, his one touchdown this year was in overtime after a holding was called back. And we spoke about this on the phone a week ago. That I think that's what always made Peerless Price the most underrated receiver to me in Tennessee football. People who want to go back and look at that 1998 year, Peerless Price, I think, called a touchdown against every ranked team Tennessee played that year. And half of his touchdowns were either lead changes or game-clinching wins. It was an insane stat.
Yeah, that is true. More on injuries as it pertains to the Tennessee-Florida game, brought to you by Craft Treats. Go to crafttreats.com. Your pet will absolutely appreciate it, and I can promise you that, because Craft Treats has the type of treats that have the CBD cannabinoids in it, and they will help your pet feel better if it has arthritis, help it with anxiety. Maybe Cedric Tillman could use some Craft Treats. I don't know. But if he doesn't play, then it's certainly a blow. I don't want to imply that at all, but it sounds odd to say, but a preseason all SEC player, you could lose him and still be okay, and still be actually good at that position with Jalen Hyde and Brew McCoy. So the other injury that I want to touch base on, because now it looks like he will play, is Ventrell Miller, the middle linebacker. Now that, I would argue, he's more key to Florida than Tillman is to Tennessee, because he handles the line calls and or the defensive front calls at middle linebacker. And you don't want to be without him. He was banged up. He's going to give it a go. We don't know how effective he's going to be, but still, that's something Tennessee would just as soon him be out, right?
Oh yeah. I'm pretty sure Tennessee would be much better off if he was.
Danny,
but
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think I think for what Tennessee is a little more nervous about is Florida's outside rushers. Brenton Cox, and then Amari Burney has actually kind of stood out a little bit early this year for Florida, and he's been a bit of a threat. I agree. Ventrell Miller, in the middle kind of keeps everything together. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes. But yeah, I think that and there's honestly, people forget this. We're talking about injuries. Florida doesn't have a backup quarterback, and Anthony Richardson is all signs suggest that he's not what he was in the opener. That he took a hit against Kentucky, wasn't it? And that he's got some sort of injury in his lower body, I think.
Well,
And
we were told by Pat Dooley with WRUF and a longtime writer for the Gainesville Sun that the concern is not only the injury, the concern is also he has a confidence problem. And that could be because of the injury, but there's a confidence issue there. So you have a quarterback coming into a very hostile environment with confidence issues. That's not good. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I go back to while this is a game Tennessee should win, and it would be incredibly disappointing if they didn't, I see no reason they can't even up the series. And we're having a conversation in 6 years that it's 3-3. I just don't think the recruiting advantage is as prominent as it was in the past. And that's what I fall back on more times than not.
let me push back a little bit on why I do think it's important, because I think this whole year is actually important for Tennessee for this reason.
Well, I don't mean to minimize the game or the year. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong, but
but
yeah,
yeah, I'm going to do the what's that ESPN meme where Brian Windhorst is doing this with his like little with
yeah.
his, yeah.
He's got his fingers up.
Yeah. So I'm going to throw that out there real quick, guys. A couple of things happening in college football right now in terms of the changing of the guard that is very relevant to Tennessee, and Tennessee needs to take advantage of. Tennessee plays Florida this weekend, and as they're playing Florida, Clemson plays Wake Forest. This is an underrated game for people who follow Tennessee. I think Tennessee is in a position to strike while the iron is hot. And what I mean by that is South Carolina is down as a program. I think people believe in Shane Beamer less and less by the day when they're watching the Gamecocks. Clemson seems to not, I know they're number 5 in both polls right now. They don't seem to be what they were about 3 years ago as a program. They're playing a Wake Forest team on the road. That's actually a pretty dangerous team. One of the underrated parts about the fall of Tennessee football was the emergence of the South Carolina programs. Tennessee had a pipeline into South Carolina back in the day recruiting that I think the 98 team had the entire defensive line from South Carolina.
All 4 of them. Yes.
Yep, all 4. And I think that when South Carolina hired Steve Spurrier and then Clemson kind of emerged, I think that really hurt Tennessee. And I think they might be in a position to really strike with Clemson. They should be smelling blood right now with Clemson sputtering and South Carolina down with Shane Beamer. And I think that makes the early part of this year crucial for them in terms of recruiting, because I do think, and that's where you're right, not Florida itself, but LSU's got a first-year head coach. Tennessee gets the luck of the draw for the first time ever in their West opponent, facing an LSU team that has a first-year head coach, because LSU is not going to be LSU is going to be a much bigger problem for teams that face them in about 2 years. I'm fully on the Brian Kelly train. I fully believe that he's going to turn that into a dominant program. If Ed Orgeron and Les Miles can win national championships there, Brian Kelly can win like 5.
And I've never been on the Shane Beamer train. I think that, and Dabo Swinney hasn't helped himself with talking about how much he hates NIL. I mean, that just rubs players the wrong way. Even if you listen, every coach hates it. Josh Heupel hates it, but you don't say it publicly.
Exactly.
If you're cheating on your wife, you don't go around telling everybody about it. And Dabo Swinney has done that. So he's kind of cheated on recruiting, maybe. There's no cheating when it comes to great beer. Zool Beer Company. Go to zoolbeer.com. That's XUL beer.com. And absolutely phenomenal beer. A great location right there in downtown Knoxville. You can hang out and you will absolutely enjoy it. So, Caleb, what did you draw from Josh Heupel's? They're not even press conferences anymore. It was 9 minutes and 1 second. So I don't know what they are, but he did visit with the media. He was asked about injuries. Of course, he didn't say anything, but what did you draw from that's on offthehooksports.com right now?
So Josh Heupel, and this is one of the things you talked about a couple of weeks ago, that he doesn't like being considered the coach that runs this finesse spread offense despite his tempo. He understands the need to be physical. He likes to run the ball. And they really talked about that yesterday, which is you could tell that they were really focused on still winning the line of scrimmage, which makes sense. Florida's got a 400-pound, isn't it like a 400-pound defensive lineman on one side, and they have to deal with that. And then on the other side, for as banged up as Anthony Richardson might be, Florida runs the ball well. They got two Louisiana transfers that followed Billy Napier to Florida. Osiris Torrance is their interior offensive lineman. I think he's the best guard in the country right now. And then Montreal Johnson, their running back. And I think Tennessee's going to really have to buckle down on the line of scrimmage to deal with those guys. You kind of noticed that with Josh Heupel yesterday, all the talk of the weapons and everything like that. But at the end of the day, he's still focused on winning the line of scrimmage, which anybody who's followed this series knows it's very, very cliche. The team that wins the rushing battle usually wins this game.
Click that like and subscribe button. Also, always leave us comments below. We love that. We have a comment from Oreo Puppy Dog. Interesting names out there. Hyatt will have a big game as well as McCoy. I have a theory. If you made me choose between Hyatt, McCoy, or another dude, as far as having a big game in Tillman's absence, assuming it is an absence, I'm going to go with another dude. I think they'll shift coverage over to Brew McCoy. I think they're going to be more mindful of the slot, and Akron is just very bad. They couldn't cover it whatsoever. I think it'll be, and you can fill in the blank of who you think it might be, but I think it'll be another receiver that has a big day at that position that Tillman was supposed to be at if he doesn't play on Saturday, which it looks like that'll be the case.
Well, Ramel Keaton did take most of the first team reps this week over Brew McCoy, so that's possible. And Ramel Keaton has a lot of experience. He had a touchdown last week. I know it was in garbage time, but I've always liked Ramel Keaton. I just don't think he was able to beat out Cedric Tillman or Brew McCoy. But you're right, the guy has potential, and he's shown it every time he's been on the field the last 3 years. And this might be his chance. So I agree. I think the slot's going to be locked off. I don't think Jalen Hyatt is going to have a big game. I think the tight ends might. I think where Tennessee's got its best chance against Florida, and go back and look at all the receivers that have done best against Florida this year. They're all big targets that have a size mismatch against them. And I think that's where Tennessee wants to utilize its advantage. So I agree with Hyatt. I'm not sure I agree with McCoy, but I will say that if it does happen, then yeah, look Ramel Keaton's way. And that's very possible that they will.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Keaton has a big day. I'm gonna say he's the guy. If you made me choose between Hyatt, Brew, or another dude, which I think the other dude will be Keaton. And so I'm gonna say he has the big game if Tennessee is successful offensively, that he's the guy that fills in and makes up for those yards that Cedric Tillman won't be able to provide. We think we just don't know 100%. I know it was reported by WBR, and I'm not questioning their reporting. They may have a source in the training room as far as I know, but I just don't think that we really know. But at this point, it's not looking fantastic that he will play. And ultimately, like I said before, Tennessee has plenty of talent in that area, so they should be okay. There are a lot of other places on this football team that you would not want to lose a key player like that. So you'll never lose if you go to Vols Automotive Group. Vols Automotive Group is on Callahan, and Vols Automotive Group is all about being fair to you. It's all about integrity. That is our business model. We only work with people that we have done business with or that we would do business with if we needed their services. And I can tell you firsthand that I'm thinking about getting a car because I'm running up miles on the car I like. And the first person I'm going to call is going to be Vols Automotive Group. And Mr. Vols there does a fantastic job. So again, Vols Automotive Group on Callahan. They also have a fantastic service department that will take care of you. So let's check the chat board quickly. Yep. Ryan likes Keaton as well. Danny likes Merrill. Merrill's going to play that slot position, right? So I think
So
that he gets
Merrill's a
more.
little bit of a Javonte Payton last year. He's got the size of a slot player, but he could play on the outside at the same time. But him playing on the outside, he's not going to bring the size mismatch that I was talking about that receivers bring.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Back in 2 minutes, I'll tell you what, I want to hear more about Big Orange Phillies, Mr. Viles.
Gary Viles here. I want to personally invite you to North Knoxville's newest sports bar and restaurant. It's Big Orange Phillies, located in Black Oak Center. And yes, folks, it's happening in Halls. Big Orange Phillies offers family-friendly environment with homemade meals and the best deli-style subs around. Billiards, darts, jukebox, shuffleboard, and cornhole, and a full bar. We also offer valet parking on weekends and during special events. We even have a covered back patio. It's happening at Big Orange Phillies. We want, we need, and we appreciate your business.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
This is Al's Nest Barbecue Supply, so come on in and see all the different rubs and sauces we have, plus a complete line of Green Mountain grills. Don't be overwhelmed. We have plenty of help so you can produce the best barbecue and amaze your family and friends. Barbecue is America's food, and we'll do what we can to bring you all the best products. We're Al's Nest Barbecue, where Chattanooga goes to grill.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassey Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassey, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassey's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassey Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
Are you old enough to know who this is? You don't hear a lot of smash ups of Led Zeppelin, Run DMC, and the Rolling Stones.
I am not. My dad was a Led Zeppelin fan. I kind of, but no, yeah, I'm not. I'm a big hip hop fan, but I really didn't start until about 19. I mean, I start like at about 1995, and
so you're a Snoop guy. That'd be like 91, 92.
Well, Snoop came out in 90, around 91. I am latter half of Tupac's career. I like angry Tupac more than peaceful Tupac, funny enough.
But I like poet Tupac as well.
Oh,
like
I do too.
Like Dear Mama. I mean, that's a great song, a great rap. It really is poetry. So there's a lot of good. It still is bizarre to me that Ice Cube goes from Bleep the Police to now he's like does kids movies.
Oh yeah, well the same with Ice-T goes from cop killer to being a cop on a show.
I know. Well, you got to be versatile. Welcome back to the program. Jonathan Crompton's going to join us very shortly. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. It is Tennessee, Florida week, and we want to get your thoughts. Ryan says, love the way Walker Merrill plays. I do too, but I'm not completely sure that he's anywhere. Well, I am completely sure. Physically, he's nowhere close to the McCoys and the Tillmans of the world, and probably not even the Keatons of the world, just because of size. I'm not saying that because he's Caucasian. I'm not going to say that he's a gym rat and he's a coach's son and he works harder than everybody else. All the stuff you hear about Caucasian athletes that is so stupid. Like the other guys didn't work hard. You know, they just showed up. It's just like the most.
Although I will say when the Titans had a Caucasian punt returner fumble a punt the other day, and in my mind, I'm like, if you're a Caucasian punt returner, Isn't catching the ball supposed to? Like, I know it came to my mind and it shouldn't have, but I'm like, isn't that the one thing you're supposed to do?
Yes, stereotypes in sports. We're almost beyond them, but not completely. Vols time said Squirrel White could be a player that has a really good game. I heard he was smoking coverages in practice. I think that continues. I think you saw a little bit of Squirrel just to see how comfortable he was against Akron. At some point, Squirrel White's going to have, I don't know, a monster game, but he's going to have a very significant game, Caleb. I don't think that. I think that will happen, whether it's Saturday or not. I don't know.
I agree. I think if he does anything Saturday, it's going to be on special teams. It's not going to be as a receiver. Again, I'm pretty. I could be so wrong on this. Watch, I'm saying this constantly, and then we're going to come back Tuesday, and I want to be like, oh my gosh, Jalen Hyatt and Squirrel White combined for 200 yards. But I'm fairly confident the slot is just not going to be there on Saturday.
Ryan says, don't sleep on Jimmy Holiday either. I think those guys have potential to be big on Saturday. Thoughts on Holiday?
Still a slot guy. If he makes an impact, it'll be returning kickoffs. Holiday and White, I can see having an impact because they're both on special teams. I think it's pretty much time to make Squirrel White the full-time punt returner. Just stop with Trayvon Flowers. And
I'm totally down with that. I saw everything I needed to see in that one punt return.
Exactly.
Assuming he's catching the ball, consistently in practice and not turning the ball over, which Trayvon Flowers has done in the game, then you got to roll with that. So he's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Hit that like and subscribe button. Share your comments. We want to hear from you. And Squirrel, I think, is going to be a fantastic player. That's kind of with the direction of the message board and where it's gone so far. This portion of the program brought to you by Owl's Nest Barbecue. Owl's Nest Barbecue right there in Ottawa. Owl's Nest Barbecue has absolutely everything you could need to barbecue. They've got the rubs, the sauces, they've got everything, and they've got those big Green Mountain grills that you'll absolutely love. So, Caleb, does Tennessee change anything significantly offensively in what they do if Cedric Tillman's not able to go? I mean, do we see more of the speed option play to Dylan Sampson? Do we see the slant to Jalen Hyatt, which we hadn't seen before? Do you think there are X's and O's adjustment, or do they pretty much play what they do and they just do it with somebody else?
I think we see a change either way, only because I think who they're playing in Florida is Florida's been so bad at stopping the run for the most part this year that I think if you're Tennessee, you stick to the ground game as much as possible. This is one of those, I get it. They didn't want to do this as much this year, but you got to buy a week next week. If there was ever a game to use Hooker's legs, it would be this game. So I think you should let Hendon Hooker run a lot more than they probably plan to on the year. I think this would be the game to do that. And
I can see that. I don't like him running though. I'm not a fan of that at all. Keep him nice and healthy. Vassy Lawn and Garden, man alive. It's worth a drive right there in Cleveland. You'll love Vassy Lawn and Garden. They are unbelievable. Jonathan Crompton joins us now, as he does each and every Friday. Jonathan, how are you, sir?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm well. The former Tennessee quarterback, and it gives us great insight into the game each and every week on Friday, and can't thank you enough. John, so every player, every coach is going to say, except for Mondre Dickerson, I don't know if you remember him, he said the coaches got really tight during the Florida game when I asked him that question, and he was suspended from the media for the rest of the year. But other than everyone says, oh, it's no different. It's no different. Is it different?
It's a double-edged sword. If you have the right mindset, it's no different. Meaning when you expect to play well and you expect to have the positive outcome that we do now, then it's a rivalry game. It's not what I'm getting at. But the bottom line is it's just the next game on the schedule. When you have that mindset, I think the quote unquote pressure is not there as much. You know what I'm saying? Like, or the pressure to not make a mistake. And it's football. Things are going to happen, good, bad, and different during the game. So on that aspect, it's just another game. To the fans and to the ex-players that are going, shoot, for lack of better words, we really want to win this game. It's not another. It is Florida week. You know what I'm saying? Like that's so. I think that's a double-edged sword question. It's a phenomenal question. Depends on the person and where they're at, as far as fan, ex-player, or current coach or player now. They need to be thinking of it as just another game. It's the next notch on the belt. All of us can go, it's Florida week. We need a W. You know what I mean? We really need this one for morale purposes. So to me, no, it's not just another game.
Do you recall a game, John, that the environment, the crowd got into the team's head at all? Was there ever a situation like that? Because it's going to be pretty raucous for the Gators coming to town.
Yeah, I would probably say 06 LSU until Jamarcus threw a 65-yard BB that nobody should be able to throw. Like, you know what I'm saying? At the end of the game, I mean, that was very, I guess the only word you can say is intense. That's what Neyland Stadium is. Now that game day is going to be there, I think it's going to be, it'll be a test for Florida. We'll just say that. There's Aaron Murray gave probably the best compliment any Tennessee fan could hear of last week. Essentially, I'm using my words, talking about Neyland Stadium, just a different animal. When it's rocking, it is a nightmare to play as an away team.
We're having just a little bit of a connection issue. I wonder, John, if you could maybe turn off the Wi-Fi and just be on 5G. That might help us a little bit on your settings. But there are a lot of things I want to get to that might help. Orange Blood saying, "Good morning, y'all. I got my shirt yesterday." Dave, thanks. You're very welcome. Do you want a shirt that says Hooker right across the front, John? Because I can hook you up.
I'm in. I love it.
Right. Well, see, the university can't sue me or send me a cease and desist letter because it's my last name too, and that means something.
It's so great. So great.
Oh, I got them. Orange, white, black.
I guarantee you do.
All right, John, I know Caleb wants to jump in here. He's got a couple of questions for you. And for those wondering, Amanda LaFrada under the weather today, hit that like and subscribe button. We want to be a part of your Tennessee and SEC coverage. We got all kinds of incredible things on the YouTube page, including Chris Landry at LandryFootball.com with breakdowns of every conference, including the SEC, of course. So, John, when you look at this Florida team and you think to yourself, wow, they have a middle linebacker that handles all their play calls and their assignments, their alignments, and that sort of thing. Not really their play calls. If you're a quarterback and you come to the line and he's not there, how much do you salivate thinking, oh well, they've got a guy that has to handle it that's not really used to handling it?
I'll be honest with you. Once you're in the game, it's in the back of your mind. It's not necessarily on the forefront. You pay attention to your keys, and obviously that is a key this week. But you still, I use this a lot. They're allowed to game plan too. So you focus on it, but you don't. That's not the end all be all. But it also, you do know going in, it's like if the boundary corner is all SEC, American, or anything, and then he's suddenly not playing, obviously you're going to pick on the boundary corner now, right? So that'll go in the back of your mind, but it's not going to be your final decision of throw the ball over the middle here. But you know that they may not be lined up correctly. So go through your keys and understand that your reads might be, I'm not saying easier, meaning like easy, but there might be a few more mistakes on the defensive side because of that, and you know that now.
Fair enough. Caleb, you want to jump in there?
Yeah, John, first I wanted to bring up, because you brought the LSU game, I will say I've been to a lot of Tennessee games over the years. The loudest I ever remember Neyland Stadium was when you threw that touchdown pass to Robert Meacham late in the game that gave the Vols that 20.
It's funny. I cannot give the full story after that play because of language. But so it was funny, though. LaRon Landry, the safety, All-American safety, I ended up playing with him in Washington. And after that play, he kind of jogs by me and kind of shoulder shrugs me and says some things you can't say, right? Or that I can't say right now. And so me being just, I'm the ultra competitor, but the bottom line is I'm not an idiot. Dude's a little bit bigger than me, a little bit stronger than me, and a little bit just more out there than me, and said some stuff, and I was like, "What'd you say?" Like, kind of looked at him, and he bucked up, and I was like, "Ooh, not a good thing here." So Aaron Sears, our left tackle, who we called the Freak, I went and got behind him and started talking smack behind Aaron. You know what I'm saying? Because I was like, one, if this escalates to the point LaRon's going to beat my you-know-what, and there's nothing I can do about it, I'm going to go down fighting, but I'm not going to win. And so in Washington, I brought that up one day, and I was like, remember this? And he goes, oh, bro, that's my bad. I'm sorry. Like, because I was like, dude, you threatened my life. Like, and that was the only time in my career, like from the time I started playing till I was done, that I was like, this dude actually might try to fight. You know what I mean? Like, you're always chirping, but this dude was a great human being, but just on the field was a nutcase. And that's what made LSU so good then. And that's what I'm saying. That game, and that was unbelievably fun, and the crowd was just nuts until, like I said, Jamarcus is making a stupidly freak play with that throw at the end of the game.
Hey, John, let's do this. If I can you disconnect and connect back, because we're still having trouble with your audio.
Let me try.
Yeah, let's give that a shot and see if we can get it better there. We can get that worked out, I'm sure. So we'll get him back on. But yeah, that Meacham guy was pretty good.
Oh my gosh, I was very critical of Cutcliffe in that game, funny enough, because I thought, why not just throw a deep pass to Meacham every time? And that was, I know that fans love the bomb every play, but it was like in that scenario, I was just like, come on, there was nobody that could guard him that year. I remember that.
Let's try to see if John's got a better connection. How's that, John?
Is that a little better?
A little bit. So let me ask you this: how do you see this Tennessee game playing out? It's certainly a game that I think 1-85, Tennessee's the better team.
Yes.
As of what I've seen so far, and everybody seems to think Billy Napier is the greatest thing since sliced bread, and he might be. But everything I've seen so far is that Tennessee has a coaching advantage as well. Yeah. But it's Florida, and Tennessee finds a way to lose these games more oftentimes than not.
Yes, I would agree with most of that, in the sense of, I'm not going to say Napier's not going to be a good coach. I think we have the coaching advantage right now. One, because we have the extra year. Two, you can tell our players believe in our system more than Florida does in their system at this moment. That's also because we're year two. They're not. And our quarterback's a little more experienced. Our system is more friendly, so to speak, to our quarterback system. And then our run game is more efficient. So I give us the edge, and like you said, 1-85, we're the better team, but you still got to play the game on Saturdays. I still think that I do think the 10.5 point spread, or at least that's what I saw yesterday. I think that might be a little high, just because it's Tennessee, Florida. I think more of like a 7 is what I would go with, but I do think we win by a touchdown.
Fair enough.
That was my pick too. I had 31-24 Tennessee.
Yeah, I think I think the 10 points a little overzealous, but hell, I hope we cover the 10. Obviously, I just think Tennessee, Florida. There's always those couple plays because it's not. They got athletes. We've got athletes. Certain point, your athlete's got to make a better play than their athlete, and they're allowed to make plays. We just got to make more, and I think we do. But that's why I think it's a. I think 31-24 is a pretty close. From what I would say.
John, I know you got a big weekend ahead of you. I'm sure you got kids to coach and kids to coach up, and I know you want to watch some ball and a busy day. So we're going to let you out of here. I appreciate the time. We'll talk to you next week. Do you got a score prediction for us real quick? Or you said about 7, right?
I would say about 7. Like I said, 31-24 is close, but I think we still reach the 40-point mark. So I'm going to go 42-35.
All right, good stuff. He's Jonathan Crompton. I appreciate it, John. Jonathan Crompton, former Tennessee quarterback, and he's been in some of those hostile environments as you would expect. But I do believe that and Josh Hepel had a quote along these lines that was essentially, Caleb, that I can't imagine any stadium being any louder than Tennessee and Neyland Stadium is going to be over the weekend, and I agree with that. I mean, if there's a bigger home field advantage than what Tennessee will have on Saturday, then show it to me, because the fans are riled up. We could argue stadium to stadium, which traditionally has the bigger advantage, but as far as what's going to go on Saturday, I can't imagine a better home field advantage.
I agree. I think if we were going to go stadium to stadium, the only places I would say get a little bit louder is, I will say, because we're talking about Florida, I've been to the Swamp one time, and that was a uniquely loud place. I think it's the design of the stadium. I don't know what it is with that.
A lot of concrete, a lot of steel. Yeah.
Yeah. And
not very open. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And then I don't know if Baton Rouge I've been there. I don't know if LSU fans are louder. I just think they're wilder.
Yeah, I think my top trio, actually quattro, and this one's going to surprise you. Now, I have not been to Missouri. Word is I'm not missing anything. I've not been to A&M, and I've heard it's fantastic. And the other two schools coming into the SEC in Texas and Oklahoma, I haven't been to I haven't been to their respective stadiums either. But as far as the loudest stadiums, I would say, and there was a time that I wanted to compare, so I actually went outside the press box and listened, because Tennessee's is a closed press box, the others aren't, that I'm going to mention. So I went outside during one Florida game just to kind of get a feel for it, because somebody had asked me earlier, and I answered honestly, I'm not sure compared to other ones, because it's a closed press box. So Florida was the other one, LSU, and this one will really surprise you, I bet. Auburn. I was really blown away by Auburn. I guess I kind of expected to show up and it be a slightly bigger high school stadium. Caleb, that wasn't the case. And the crowd was a factor. It was just, it really blew me away. Maybe it's because my expectations were lower when I went there. I thought, you're Alabama's little sister. I mean, how bad can that be? But I think it's a tougher place to play than Alabama. If you want to take out the tradition, but just in terms of the fan noise and all that, it was really, really loud. I was blown away. Now, they also, I think, had a brand new Jumbotron. They've even added a bigger one since. So you got the feeling that was really all that was going on in Auburn for the week. And perhaps the month, depending on how the schedule fell.
Yeah, I can't comment. I actually haven't been to Auburn, funny enough. That's the one that I haven't done. I've done Alabama, but I haven't been to Alabama since they enclosed the stadium fully. So I wonder if ever since the stadium's gone over 100,000, I wonder if Alabama's gotten louder since then. But as we know, stadium size isn't always the biggest thing because Michigan's got the biggest stadium in the country. And I feel like that's one of the quietest stadiums too, because it goes out instead of on top of the field.
Yeah, very true. Our visit with John brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning, cityheatandair.com. Coming up, why Tennessee should be concerned, even though they're the better team. Daniel saying Neyland is going to be louder than it's been a long time. Ole Miss was insane, and this is going to be even crazier. Leave your kids at home. Act like you've got some sense, people. Let's not. Nothing needs to be thrown on the field if something goes south. You
But
don't
throw
need to
some
do
good
all
mustard on the field. Why are you throwing cheap, like basic mustard? Get the Dijon or the spicy bread.
Yeah. Do you remember the Grey Poupon commercials? Or are you too young for that? Where
I'm probably too young for that.
a Bentley would pull up next to another Bentley, and they would say, "Pardon me, do you have any Grey Poupon?" But the problem was those were 1980s dollars, and it was like $8 for a little bitty bottle of Grey Poupon, so nobody bought that. So I don't even know if they still have that anymore, but they certainly don't market it. If you're absolutely in love with it, you go find it. But I don't think anybody's going to pay $8 for grainy mustard.
Yeah.
But what should Tennessee be worried about? There are a couple of things that I want to address with Caleb Calhoun right after this, back in 2 minutes. And I want to get your comments too. Let's start getting some score predictions in, and we will try to give some stuff away. We've given away a lot of t-shirts, and we'll give away more. 2 minutes back with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker.
It's Gary Viles here, Viles Automotive on Callahan Drive. I've been selling cars here in East Tennessee for 27 years. In that time, I've come to realize it's not about the car. It's about you, the customer. So I'm here to take care of you just like family. Good credit, bad credit, you name it, we can get you taken care of. If we don't have it, we can find it for you. We go across the country to get any vehicle that you want. And here at Viles Automotive, we don't believe in fake numbers. We just give you great deals. And as always, we want, we need, and we appreciate your business.
Do you want to own the more that owns every job? Then get to Vassey Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassey, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassey's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassey Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
This is Steve Rain. I own the Midnight Oil and Michelin Tire Direct service station here in Ooltewah. It's not a fancy place, never has been, but it's a clean place with clean restrooms and good folks who work here. We sell gas and fix cars, nothing glamorous, but we love what we do, and we're going to keep doing it for a long time to come. There's not many real service stations left, and that's a shame. We're the guys just like the guys back in your hometown. We'll fix your tire, change your oil, and put a new set of Michelins on your car. If you want a Twinkie, you'll just have to keep on going. Thanks for the business.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Okay, the first person that can tell me what this music bed is wins a Hooker t-shirt. So that's a hint. Wins a Hooker t-shirt. Do you have any idea what this music bed is? Caleb Calhoun, do you?
No idea.
Okay. Somebody will know. Somebody my age is about to win a t-shirt. What is this music bed from? You'll win a hooker t-shirt. Maybe it's from a television show. Maybe William Shatner was in it. Maybe you can watch a game at Big Orange Phillies. Big Orange Phillies is in North Knoxville. Big Orange Phillies is a great place to go, whether you're in Powell or Carnes, Maynardville. It's all right there on Maynardville Pike. Big Orange Phillies is fantastic. You'll absolutely love Big Orange Phillies. Great food, family friendly. And this is your hooker report brought to you by Big Orange Phillies that has darts, billiards, and the whole 9 yards. All right. Mike, did you get it? But you got to give it. Mike thinks yes, but you got to give me the initials, what that music bed was from. This is a hooker report, and it's brought to you by Big Orange Phillies. Hendon Hooker's Heisman Trophy odds, and I don't think he's going to win the Heisman Trophy. I think that you have a guy who, as long as he's healthy, he's going to have similar or better numbers, and he's in the same conference. His name's Bryce Young. He plays for Alabama, and he's probably going to play in bigger games unless the season takes an odd turn. But as far as his odds, he would be a 4,000 to 1. So explain what that means to non-gamblers out there. Plus 4,000, you got to bet 100 to win $4,000, right?
Yes, it's like I always get the math wrong. I'm better with the negatives than the positives, funny enough. But yeah, if you bet 100, I think it's if you bet 100, you'll win $4,000.
So go ahead. Sorry.
I'm just going to say yes. I've turned a profit on money line bets this year so far. So not to brag, but I'm up about 60% on profits in my money lines, and I'm over 60% on the spreads and over under. So making a profit on both.
Love it. All right. So. By the way, I'll just go ahead and give it to you. Yes, Gene. Oh, Brandon's first. Brandon got it. TJ Hooker. William Shatner back in the day. That's your hooker report. He's sliding across the top of a police car. He's one of those grizzled, mean police officers, and he's a by-the-book sort of guy. He's not Captain Kirk flying by the seat of his pants. It's the exact opposite character. I can't believe you have got to watch. Will you promise me you'll watch an episode of TJ Hooker this weekend?
You're talking to me?
Yes. You're like, heck no, I'm not watching TJ Hooker.
I mean, we got kind of a busy weekend, Dave, but I'll try to give it a shot.
Brandon, go ahead and send me your. Oh no, Mike had it first. Mike had TJ. So, Mike, if you want to send me a message, I know you're on Facebook right now. Go ahead, Mike, and send me a message. And yes, you did get it. Mike's like, hey, I got it. So, Mike, send me a message, and I'll send you a hooker T-shirt. Just tell me the color and the size. And I'll do my best to accommodate. We're running a little bit low, so we're going to have to get another order of those. Speaking of order,
William Shatner connection, by the way, just so you know, is I'm a big fan of the Halloween slasher series, and I didn't realize the very first Michael Myers mask, they didn't have any money, so they bought a William Shatner mask, spray painted it white, and cut out the eyes.
Really?
Yes, that's the very first Michael Myers mask.
I did not. Okay. Now I have to go look at that, and you'll have to watch TJ Hooker. Now they had there was it Heather Locklear, Mike, that was in that? And it was really odd for me because until recently, and we had a subscriber recently on our YouTube channel. Please like, subscribe, and share. We greatly appreciate that. But we had one recently that his last name was Hooker. So it's basically him and Hendon. And I had an orthopedic surgeon when I was a kid with the last name Hooker. He was Polynesian, though. So I don't think I was related to him. I don't think I was related to Hendon. I'm not sure if I am related to the new YouTube subscriber, but I've never met anybody until recently with the same last name outside my family. But it's taken the world by storm. So Caleb's kind of my pimp. He tells me what to write. I always let Caleb get first dibs because he's a great writer, and check his stuff out.
Well, to be fair, there was a Union Civil War general named Joseph Hooker.
Okay. Well, no. I'm related to him.
You're related to Joseph Hooker?
Yeah, I swear. I swear. So you know what? Do you know where the term hooker comes from, right?
Yes, yes. Joseph Hooker basically needed women to sleep
Well,
with the soldiers for his morale.
well, it's sleep, hang out with, whatever you call it, Caleb. But yes, and everything went well, and it was one of the most successful battalions in the Civil War, right up until all of his soldiers got syphilis.
Oh, I didn't know that part of the story.
And it
Which
went,
now I haven't been thinking about this, but I cannot believe earlier I said they've got to use Hooker's legs to win the game. I
oh,
don't.
man, you are, that is, you're pushing the limit. I don't know. It's a good thing we don't have the SEC or no, that would be the FCC involved. It was Heather Locklear that was in that. And I did a lot of work with Pedigo, and William Shatner actually is their spokesperson. You may not know. And I spoke to some Pedigo dealers that said he is incredibly short, really, really short in person, which you don't see in Star Trek, and you certainly didn't see in TJ Hooker when he was sliding across the hood of a car. And speaking of Pedigo Chattanooga, if you are in Chattanooga, it is a great place to go ahead and rent a bike or purchase a bike, and you will love, love, love that bike, because you've got the pedal assist, or you got the thrust, and you've got it all right there at Pedigo Chattanooga, and you can tour around town and cover the whole town, not have to worry about parking. And the great part about Pedigo, unlike some other e-bike manufacturers, is you can get service right there at their local stores. That's not the case elsewhere. So if you're Tennessee, what are you most worried about? Yeah, Mike, it's yes, Heather Locklear. Heather Locklear wasn't hard on the eyes. Caleb, if you're Tennessee, what are you most concerned about, other than the periphery, other than not handling the pressure well, which could happen? I mean, it could. I don't think it will, especially after the way they held up against Pitt in not playing their best and winning. But as far as position wise, as far as players, who are you most concerned about?
From Florida?
Yes, for Tennessee. Well, from Tennessee, Florida, from Tennessee's perspective, best way to put it.
Okay. I mentioned him earlier, but I'm going to say it. This is going to be the first game in the history of the universe, and I have a weakness with superlatives, so just I'm going to clarify that. But where an offensive lineman could be the scariest player, I think Osiris Torrance blocking in the middle could give Amari Thomas and Karat Garland hell, whoever is going against him. I think I'm really high on him. I think he's the best guard in college football right now. And there's a reason Montreal Johnson is averaging 9.5 yards a carry. And it's because of Osiris Torrance. And I think that he could create a lot of holes. And the one time Tennessee's played a Power 5 team this year so far, they weren't bad against the run, but they gave up a couple of long runs, one for a touchdown against Pittsburgh. And so that's the craziest part. Overall factor, I would still say, Florida has 4 interceptions on the year. I still don't think that's a concern with Tennessee, just because they don't throw interceptions. And Hooker has been very good about that. He might have 1 pick, but I don't think he's going to throw 2. So I think the other one would be penalties. Tennessee still has a problem with penalties. They had. I know you thought some of them were bad calls last week, but they did have, wasn't it 11 penalties, I think, in the game for over 100 yards. And in 4 of their 6 losses last year came when they had double-digit penalties. They're kind of inconsistent on that. They've been inconsistent on that under Hepel since he took over. And that, I think part of that's natural. When you run such an up-tempo offense, you're naturally going to have some formation issues and things like that. I kind of remember when Florida won their 2 national championships under Urban Meyer, that first Florida team with Chris Leak made mistake after mistake on offense consistently, because it was so tricky getting lined up a lot of times. But that's something they have to worry about.
Yeah, and we talked earlier about the amount of quarterback talent that will be on display. So Nico is going to be in town. But one of the things you've said all along is Taven Jackson. And I referenced, practices aren't open, so anybody that tells you that Taven Jackson's playing great or bad, either one, is just kind of throwing stuff out there. But I thought that the announcers gave us a little hint around the Akron game that they really like Taven Jackson. Now, if it were Butch Jones, I would say that in the pre-production meetings that he passed that along to make sure Jackson wouldn't transfer with Nico Amaleva coming in. But I don't think he's as orchestrated as Butch Jones. So I think they really like Taven Jackson. I noticed that they went on and on and on about him, and so I think there's something there. I think everybody expects Nico to walk in and win the job, but who knows? Maybe it's more of a battle. But you really like Jackson.
I do, and he was Josh Heupel's first signee as a major quarterback for Tennessee, first commitment as a recruit. I think Heupel's been very specific on the quarterbacks he's targeted. I think last year, as I talked about them, the reason he started Joe Milton over Hendon Hooker is he was just partial to Joe Milton. That was the first quarterback. That was the first quarterback that he actually personally signed, and the only quarterback on the roster last year that he signed. He went after Taven Jackson for a reason, and I don't think it's a guarantee Nico just comes in and wins the job next year. I mean, honestly, again, I don't think it's a guarantee Nico wins it in 2 years, because you could very easily see a situation where Joe Milton starts his final year of eligibility next year, and then Taven Jackson wins the job the year after that. So I think everybody, as excited as they are, probably needs to take a step back. I mean, we've seen this all the time with quarterbacks in history. So it's not a guarantee. I mean, it's possible. But yeah, I do like Taven Jackson a lot. And he's been again, it was against Akron, but he completed both his passes last week and he ran for a touchdown. So watch out for him. He could end up winning the job. And I'm with you about, I take what I listen a little bit more to Josh Heupel than I do Butch Jones. Josh Heupel hasn't given me any reason to not believe him. Oh my gosh, covering Butch Jones was the worst. I mean, every week was this. We love this player. We love this player. We never saw him on the field then the whole year, half the time. And it was just, I to the point where when Jawan Jennings went on his rant on Instagram, I totally defended him. He called the coaches liars. And I'm like, having covered Butch Jones for 4 years to that point, I'm like, they were lying all the time to us. And it was so frustrating.
Yeah. Tennessee in much better shape now, and it might culminate with a big win against the Gators. Sam saying, do you think Nico ever starts in his first year? I'm going to say, based off the eye test that gets me in trouble, that yes. I mean, I'm going to disagree a little bit with Caleb here. I like Taven Jackson. I think that Tennessee's coaches like Taven Jackson. I understand that he was that signee, but I think there's a reason that Nico is the second highest rated quarterback, and I think third overall player, maybe, but right up there, but second highest for sure behind Arch Manning. The one thing I would like to see in person that I haven't seen yet, that I always think is important for me, is the way the ball pops out of his hand. I don't think you can really see that in video and highlights as much, but I've seen a lot of video and highlights, and I love the Vince Young comparison. I really like that because I think he has light feet. I think he runs on his toes, and I mean that in a good way. Like, me, I'm, old and back on my heels. But he runs and he's mobile. I think he keeps his eyes downfield. I think he has a great presence for the game. So if you haven't watched any highlights of Nico, that's the closest comparison I could give to you right now. And I mean, heck, Vince Young was pretty good. If that's what you get out of Nico, you're in good shape, Caleb.
I agree. And it's weird. I would have always thought that Josh Heupel's system was more reliant on accuracy than it was on a big arm, but Drew Lock proved me wrong on that years ago. So I think somebody like, you're right, a mobile quarterback with a cannon for an arm seems to be a better fit for his system. So
yeah, and I think that, and this is going to sound like I'm knocking Hendon Hooker, and I'm not, but I think you're going to see this offense hit another level when they get a quarterback with a little bit more accuracy. I think throwing the ball 6 inches in front of a player is vastly different than throwing the football at the numbers. I think when you lead a player, I think it's going to make a big, big difference. Now, credit Hendon Hooker, because on that slant pass to Jalen Hyatt, he did that. Okay, but does he do that with regularity? There was an underthrown touchdown pass. I believe it was against Akron as well. But the guy was so wide open. I think that was Hyatt as well, right? Down the
Oh
far
yeah, that was
sideline.
Hyatt.
Yeah.
That was Hyatt on that
So
one.
he was so open that could have been a conservative throw. It was underthrown, but he was so open it could just been like, let me make sure that I don't overthrow him. But I believe this offense has 2 or 3 more levels to it. I really do.
Yeah, it's kind of like I see Hendon Hooker doing for Tennessee, and I'm with you. This is not a knock on him. Doing for Tennessee what Taj Boyd did for Clemson all those years ago. Taj Boyd really put Clemson on the map by playing really, really well. He helped them recruit because Clemson was kind of emerging as a powerhouse program. And then don't like the guy, not defending him. I have nothing good to say about him personally, but as a quarterback, they brought in Deshaun Watson came in and took that offense to another level with Clemson. And so I kind of see that transition. Another one is like EJ Manuel to Jameis Winston with Florida State. EJ Manuel is very good, and then Jameis Winston came in and just took that offense to a completely different level the next year.
Yeah, that's interesting because Clemson was very good and they were knocking on the door before Deshaun Watson, and it was a whole different level. So that very well could be what either Taven Jackson or Nico bring. I think there are going to be a lot of people that have heard so much about Nico, they want him to win the job. But if he doesn't win the job, it means Taven Jackson's that good. It's not any indictment of Tennessee's recruiting or anything they've done. I think that Tennessee, if they start Taven Jackson, it's because he's just really that good. And I don't know what you really draw from the Akron game and the times he's played in garbage time, Caleb, but I do think that there is some pretty significant upside there. Like I said before, he was the 12th rated quarterback in the country. I know that's not elite like number 1 or 2, Nico's 2, but number 12 ain't bad.
It's not. I think the big thing is we have to hope that the Tennessee fans need to hope that the coaches don't have people they want to win the job, because that's when things don't work out well. I go back to, 94, I think everybody wanted Peyton Manning to win the job over Brandon Stewart, but that was the right decision. Even though Brandon Stewart was good, Peyton Manning was clearly better. But then I can go to 2005 when there was the Rick Clausen, Eric Ainge situation, and you were covering at that time. From all the reports I heard, Rick Clausen was outperforming Ainge all off season.
Well, he was, and that led to a really big split in the team because the team felt like that they were good enough with a caretaker type to dole the ball out and not make mistakes, and that was Rick Clausen. And Eric Ainge obviously had much more ability. I mean, he could throw the ball through a brick wall, but they wanted somebody who's just going to deliver the ball on time. And Ainge wasn't at that point in his career. You could say that's because of coaching, or you could say that's because of his own fault. I don't know. But with Clausen, the thing about that season, it was kind of like a Trent Dilfer, so to speak. That team had a lot of good people around him, had a good defense. They could have done a lot more than what they ended up doing. And that was kind of the first year of the downward trend significantly for Tennessee. And I do believe, though, that at Tennessee, whether you're talking about Taven Jackson, just the limited times I've seen him throw the ball and the tape that I've watched, and Nico and Joe Milton, you're not talking about any of those guys having limited ability. All of those guys have great ability. And really, the day and age of saying that quarterback's arm's not strong enough is really over. I mean, I think people say that about Tua Tagovailoa in the NFL. He still has a big time arm. I mean, he has everybody that's started in the NFL or at a Power 5 group, a Power 5 program, has a strong enough arm to play at that level. There are some elite guys like Josh Allen, Justin Herbert that have monster arms that are at another level, but there's nobody that doesn't have the arm to get by. And I don't know that there's a really discernible difference. I think Joe Milton probably has the strongest of the three arms, but I don't know if there's a discernible difference between what I've seen just on tape between Taven Jackson and Nico. And you have to remember, too, Nico is going to probably put on 10 to 15 pounds of muscle as soon as he shows up at Tennessee. So his arm's going to get stronger as well.
Yeah, I've said this for years in football, and actually, this isn't even a new thing. It's as old as, since Tom Brady came into the league or since Peyton Manning came into the league. I think there's a base level of arm strength that's required for that level. There's a minimum. I think once you hit that minimum, accuracy, decision making, pocket presence, nowadays a little mobility, those are all more important at that point. Because I will never forget the Jamarcus Russell draft when Mel Kiper was saying, oh, he can throw 80 yards on his knees. I'm like, well, how many times is he going to be asked to throw 80 yards on his knees in an NFL game? That you just don't have to do that ever. So it was completely irrelevant. And I'm with you. I think they all have minimum arm strength. I think at this point it's accuracy and who picks up Heupel's offense quicker and who's got a little mobility enough to evade pressure.
All right. So Scott's saying, well, let's start with Sam. Sam saying, not sure Taven Jackson has the athletic talent of Joe Milton or Nico. I would agree with that, but I don't think it's significant enough where if he's accurate and he's a better decision maker, just like Caleb said, I don't think it's like he has a noodle for an arm and he's not going to play. And then we had a question from Jason. Any word on Small? Definitely got to run the ball efficiently. I think from what I've been told that he's going to be okay. I think Cedric Tillman is probably going to be the guy that is not going to play on Saturday. Of course, it looks that way. And Sam says Tennessee has been the first conference game for Florida for I don't know how long. I don't remember the last time they came into the game with a loss. It's funny you bring that up because in the Spurrier days, they would play practically no one. They would play Central Florida, A&M West. I mean, they would play just the most pitiful opponents and get to fine-tune their game, and that was by design with Steve Spurrier. And, yeah, I don't think that I can't recall the last time Florida came in with a loss.
So that's I've been seeing the same question too with Scott right below Sam about that, and that's the one I keep harking back into. Not to scare anybody, 2002, Tennessee was undefeated, number 5. Right. Florida had gotten blown out by Miami, had a first-year head coach. Game day was in town. I think Tennessee was already looking ahead to Miami at that point. It's funny because Florida was the big rivalry at the time, but they considered Florida an afterthought, and then just got blown off the field at Neyland Stadium that day.
Danny saying Nico enrolling when we play our bowl game. Yes, so he'll be able to participate in bowl practice, unless there's been a rule change I'm not aware of. But college football does that from time to time. Midtermers used to be a big thing, but nowadays it's commonplace. The way Nico is, I wouldn't be surprised if he just took his visit to Knoxville and just stayed. I mean, he seems so ready to start his college career that if I'm his high school coach, I'm probably a little bit concerned about that, to be real honest with you. But yeah, he's going to enroll at midterm. That will help him. Jason, I tell you what, you can get a Hooker shirt. Just go to offthehooksports.com, and you will see the ads there. And we just reduced the price for Florida Week, so you'll find it very, very affordable. And we would certainly appreciate your support. And so go ahead and give that a click. And other than that, you got to win a trivia question, which we've already done for the day. But Jason's going to order one, so we appreciate that. They're fancy. I'm going to go ahead and tell you. They're soft and just awesome. And we're going to get Caleb one of those. So Caleb can just walk around with his Hooker shirt on. And and we'll see if he gets ridiculed. All right, keys to the game. Let's wrap this thing up. Keys to the game, final score. What do you got, Caleb?
So keys to the game, I think Tennessee needs to avoid penalties, we talked about this, turnovers are obvious, and they need to make sure that they can handle Florida's rushing attack. I think they'll be fine on the outside with receivers, with or without Cedric Tillman. I think they got the size advantage, and I think they'll do a really good job of running the ball. So yeah, I think I think those are the biggest ones. Avoid penalties, avoid turnovers, and make sure that they can get a good push on the defensive line to stop a pretty good Florida's rushing attack. I got 31-24 Tennessee. I think they proved against Pittsburgh that they can actually win a slugfest if it comes to that, funny enough. And I think Florida's going to try to make it that. There's going to be a lot more running in this game. So I'm taking the under, and I'm taking Tennessee, but not to cover.
I think the key is 2 words: muddle rush, muddle rush, muddle rush. I think that it doesn't matter how many times you sack Anthony Richardson, just keep him in front of you. Don't let him break contain. Don't let him run through the gaps. If the coverage is good downfield, that's the only way. I mean, other than the obvious, if Tennessee makes massive mistakes, that's the only way I see Florida winning this game, is if they allow him to make plays with his legs. And at the end of the day, shame on Tennessee if they do that. If they get too excited about getting a sack and they're not protecting their gap responsibility, then that's their fault. And you hope that's not the case if you're a Tennessee fan, because we've all seen a running quarterback change the game. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. We will have full coverage of the game, Tennessee, Florida. Several articles coming up, including one from Jimmy Himes of the Sports Animal, also with Caleb, and we'll have a video wrap up after the game. So this has been a production of Off the Hook Sports Tennessee, Florida Week.